coming up next. Stay tuned to learn more about student interest in blockchain technology. Reimagine 2020.
Hey everybody, my name is Andrei Semenov. I'm a part of the CONA Services organization that is an IT services company for the Coca-Cola bottlers. My role is a director of the supply chain innovation in CONA, and I'm responsible for all supply chain innovation that pertains to warehouse and operations, transportations, etc.
Hey everybody, it's Patrick McLain, one of your hosts here, as you know, for Reimagine 2020. As part of our 72-hour journey, I am very excited for the next interview. I have had the chance to talk with this person in the kind of very high-level ways the last few weeks, and had some very interesting conversations with him. Why? And I'll let Andrei introduce himself in a second as part of CONA. And, you know, what really intrigued me the first time I talked to Andrei was just to hear, you know, what his organization was doing, kind of their commitment to execution on blockchain. But before I talk too much for him, I will let him introduce himself. But Andrei, if you want to introduce yourself and, you know, tell everybody maybe a little bit about, you know, how you got to blockchain and what you're doing.
Hey, everybody. My name is Andrei Semenov. I'm a director of supply chain innovation at CONA. That is an IT services company for the Coca-Cola bottlers in North America and Canada. I'm happy to be a part of the Reimagine 2020. And thanks for inviting us to this conference.
So zoom out a little bit. Like, what is your role at CONA? Can you tell everybody just a little bit about CONA? I just learned about CONA myself the first time recently.
So CONA stands for Coke One North America, and the Coke One goes back to 2008 when our organization decided to create a template, the solution template that the Coca-Cola bottlers worldwide could use. And just, you know, the Coca-Cola is a franchise system, and worldwide we have over 250 bottling companies that manufacture, produce, and distribute Coca-Cola to their customers, retailers, convenience stores, etc. So Coke One historically was a platform that was rolled out worldwide for the bottlers to run their backend, run the manufacturing, all the supply chain and finance. And Coke One North America was born in 2011, 2012, when we decided to implement Coke One template in North America for the 12 largest North American bottlers. Today, we have all the 12 bottlers on our platform running their operations, day-to-day operations through the CONA systems, and they're generating over 20 billion revenue through our system, North America and Canada. I think we can finish here.
Well, and what really intriguing about CONA, and I just want to distill it down, right? Like we have many people listening to this call. So there's probably a few thousand students that are going to watch this, interested in blockchain. There's like general blockchain enthusiasts. There's enterprise people. And I really want to push for like an elevated conversation. And I have a core feeling you can add to that uniquely, probably more than most people. If I can just, I'll try to do my layman term description, but it's Coca-Cola. It's like, what's Coke? Nah, one of the biggest drinks in the world, right? And you guys don't, it sounds like you guys don't deliver everything yourself. There's a lot of partners that help you deliver your product. Is that fair?
Right, so the Coca-Cola bottlers produce and deliver the product, and Coke doesn't do it themselves. And just to, you know, all the red trucks that you see on the road in any point in the country or in the world is driven by the bottling business. And our goal was to bring all the bottlers together on a single platform and there is a business network in place that consists of these large, mid-sized, and small bottlers that are, by definition, trading partners between each other. And with blockchain, our goal was to bring trust and bring transparency to this already existing business network that's been in place for hundreds of years, and bring them onto the same platform, same network, where they can transact seamlessly, provide visibility to supply chain transactions, and go to the next level of automating and optimizing their business processes as they buy and sell products between each other.
So for everybody listening, this is a good example. From the first time I talked to Andrei, one reason I liked him, because he's very efficient in the way he answers questions. There's a lot to unpack from what he just said, and I want to kind of get to that. But before we get to that, again, Andrei, there's a lot of students listening to this call. The 19, 20, 21-year-olds are kind of thinking about their career paths, CS majors, engineers, business people that see opportunities in blockchain are kind of curious about what the future holds. Can you tell everybody listening, like, what was your path to get to this point, right? Like, what was maybe your past experience or your past passions, jobs, et cetera, that kind of led you to blockchain? Are you an enthusiast of blockchain? And what was that? What did that evolution look like?
Yeah, that's a perfect question. I'm happy to be with CONA because here I was able to bring my passion, my hobby into the actual idea and project, and now running this project in production. So I started my journey with blockchain back in 2016. I learned a lot about Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, and kind of as working with CONA at that time, thinking how the distributed ledger technologies can help solve some of the major bottler problems and optimize their processes. How can we help the bottlers unlock the new values and bring the new ideas into their day-to-day operations with some innovation? And blockchain was one of them. And basically, we just decided to start with an idea. We incubated the idea. We had a few use cases. We reviewed what we can do with blockchain, and we moved forward. We had a very good business engagement. As we went through our project implementation, build, and experimentation phases, we wanted to include some of the key business partners from the field, from the bottler operations, to educate them what this technology can bring on the table and how it can improve their operations and at the end improve their dollar baseline. And what we did for that, we didn't want to run it as a formal project in CONA. We didn't want to run it as a formal initiative, but rather go and do more experimentation, see what we can do, fast fail and redo. And we partnered a lot with the local universities. We're located in Atlanta, Georgia, so we worked a lot with Georgia Tech, GSU universities, just to see who's going to be interested in helping us. And some of the key players in our project has become our interns and our employees later that are now leading the blockchain project.
Got it. Last question before I pivot, and I have a few questions to kind of unpack what you were telling us about CONA earlier, because I think the experiences you guys have learned from CONA, kind of dealing with many parties, kind of play really well into blockchain inherently. Yeah. So before we get into other parts, I think it's something to unpack. But just for anyone listening, like, are you technical? Are you an engineer? Like, how would you describe yourself briefly?
So my background is a master's in computer science. So I have a technical background, and I've been a developer at the beginning of my career, and then become a consultant more in the SAP implementation space, working in the gas and oil industry, retail, and then moving on to the CPG and food and beverages industry with Coca-Cola.
Got it. All right, so let's go back to kind of CONA for a little bit, because I think it's important, and we'd like to get your insight. So, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but like, I see Kona as like, obviously Coke is this big brand. They have a ton of resources. And at some point you guys identified, hey, we have these desperate parties. We have these individual parties, and it's beneficial to us to in some way, I don't want to say unify, but I'm assuming it's unification, but also like centralize our resources to kind of help everyone unilaterally, right? So
Yeah.
when I compare that to blockchain, I kind of see a lot of similarities, right? Especially when we think of blockchain outside of DeFi, like when we think of blockchain in supply chain, whatever, right? Like one of the hardest things I think of for blockchain adoption in supply chain is that there are so many disconnected parties that it takes a lot to kind of get sign off from so many of them that it inherently, even if the technology is there, there can be other roadblocks that will just never lead to deployment. So and I would like to hear your explanation, and if I'm butchering it, let me know. But I see Kona as being in a really unique spot where you don't own them. You're a value add partner, and because you're a value add partner, you can identify things that will help, right? And it sounds like you guys have identified blockchain. So not to go on too long, but do you think that's like a unique benefit to what the situation you guys have? And has that impacted how you're thinking about blockchain?
Yeah, so I think what we want to emphasize here, that Kona is in a unique position to work with multiple bottlers, multiple independent companies who are running the Coca-Cola business, and we're in a unique position where we need to listen to our bottlers and unify the processes that they need to run in order to support their business and bring them onto a single platform in a standardized way. And what blockchain helped us to achieve is to extend our backend ERP systems and extend them to the other mid-size and small-size bottlers to create this bottling or beverages network where the bottlers could operate efficiently using similar processes, and in particular in supply chain, procurement, and invoicing.
That's the first time that's happened to me in 4 days. But I thought you were gonna go on longer. We'll edit this part out.
Okay.
I'll pick it up from that. So to and I hear what you're saying, but to dive a bit deeper, like, do you think that gives you guys like a very unique advantage where like other companies, like they don't control that process as much as they're not as hands-on?
So what the unique position of Kona is, our goal is, and I think where we're moving forward, is to become a strategic partner for our bottling partners, where we can be used as an innovator or advisor on implementation new technologies that can be applied and implemented across multiple trading partners, and use us to build the best practices and standards into our solutions. And the bottlers see us as a partner that help them to reduce their IT spend, but at the same time make the IT systems, the IT platform standardized and supportable for their business operations.
Got it. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it safe to say that like when you reflect and compare yourself to maybe your competitors or other industry leaders, would you say that you guys are on the upper echelon of adoption of blockchain or the lower half, or?
So we see ourselves as a very pragmatic team, taking a very pragmatic approach as far as the blockchain is concerned. We started with a very concrete problems that we had in our cross entities collaborations use cases that we tried to solve, and we saw the distributed ledger and blockchain technologies being a great fit there. And as we have our production environment up and running for almost 8 months, it's going to be a year in September, we're unlocked and we quantified some of the returns or performance improvements some of the opportunities cost is coming back to the bottlers that blockchain is generating, we see ourselves looking into the blockchain implementation from the use case perspective. We're really happy to partner with more of our internal trading partners, with including more and more Coca-Cola bottlers, just because we're already an established business network, and it's easier to negotiate and come to a single conclusion on what the network should be, what the functionality should be there, what information we want to share between each other. And then I think the end goal is to start reaching out to our key suppliers and our key customers to start working with them and including them into our network to increase the benefits and add more benefits to the network as a whole.
Got it. So I want to talk for a second about what does your guys' journey look like, right? Like, obviously, at some point you dip your toes in the water in blockchain. Like, when did that kind of start? How has that evolution across that journey really worked out, right? Like, maybe some lessons you've learned through that process.
Yeah. So we started our blockchain journey in Kona about 2 years ago when myself and my other colleague, we pitched to our leadership team and we said that we want to solve some concrete use cases and implement the blockchain in Kona for the bottlers. So we started our partnership with some of the key vendors to talk about, we're doing the design thinking, what we need to do, what the solution should look like, who needs to participate in this. And we moved on into more the ideation phase, design thinking phase pretty quickly, engage our business partners. And as we were building the solution, we were also educating the business folks on what the blockchain does. About a year ago, we were able to successfully pilot the solution. And shortly after, we decided to move in our production environment. And the whole idea was not to experiment too much, not to make it a project infinity where we're just trying to develop something without a concrete use case, concrete outcome, but rather deliver the value quickly, move into production, realize the value, calculate what we get from this, and move on to the next use case or enhance the current use case, add a new participant to the network, grow it, and take a very step-by-step, very tactical approach.
For anyone listening, by the way, I'm telling you, from the first time I talked to Andrei, I was like, this guy's smart. And he plays like really cool. He's not gonna like show it to you. Like, Andrei is a killer. I'm telling you, Andrei knows what he's doing. So I want to hear more about you on this. Like, so you've been part of this at Kona pretty much from the early stages, the blockchain adoption, yeah?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So I basically.
Well, hey, hang on. Yeah. And I got my next question now.
Okay.
But like, all right, so if you could go back in time, if you had a time machine, like, and you go back to like beginning Andrei Kona thing, what would you tell yourself? Like, what lessons did you learn on that journey that if you go back in time, you're like, oh man, this was dumb. Or we should approach this totally differently.
I think the lessons learned that we had, first, you always, as we understand the technology, and I've been enthusiastic in blockchain, and we had some really great technical resources. We knew, what technologies we want to use, but number one success that we see in our story is that we don't go alone as an IT organization. We partner with the business, and we help them learn and kind of immerse in what the blockchain is, understand what the benefits are and why we want to do this. We don't want to try to find the nail where we know that we have a hammer and we just want to play with the new technology, but rather approach it from the business and the problem perspective. And so what probably we would do differently is maybe engage more business community, have more webinars, more training materials that would help a lot of people to get very excited about the blockchain technology and understand the difference about the distributed ledger technology versus the Bitcoin or Ethereum, just the cryptocurrency aspect of it that they have the initial knowledge of.
So like who is that community though? Like if you were to build resources or outlets, or you would have improved communication, like I want to be clear for everybody listening, because and I'll explain why I care about this, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think there's like a big divide. There's like on one side, there's all these people like, oh, Bitcoin, and all these maximalists, and they want to burn down the world. On the other side, everybody's building all these blockchain applications where I think I've been in technology most of my life. Like I'm a bit disappointed at adoption right now. Now it's hard to say that, right? Hindsight's always 2020. Like,
Yeah.
should we have done blockchain faster? Okay, maybe. Like, right. Now you have a unique perspective, and this is where I think there's like kind of like an anarchy. I don't say anarchy. Like some of the blockchain community, when I would say, hey, you need banks to maybe help you roll out blockchain at scale, right? Or you need corporate partners or large institutional partners to really deploy your technology, where you can say, look, I've done this across 1 billion transactions, right? So, and I think validation is one of the hardest things for people to kind of hit here. Like if you were to look at the landscape and say, you've obviously seen, you have to wear probably many hats, right? Like, and I guess it kind of leads me into my second question. Like anything you do is kind of a consortium, right? Which is again, is very interesting from Kona. And other people on blockchain, like I just got off with ING, right? Like they're doing the head of blockchain for ING. They're doing consortiums with other banks and regulators. Well, those are kind of like optional in their process, right? Like who kind of wants to come to the table. But in Kona, you guys, you don't really have an option, right? Like you have this base layer of third-party suppliers who you want to maintain a strong relationship, right? Like there's no incentive to not make them comfortable along the process, right? So I feel like you guys have to naturally think about multiple parties. What have been some of those concerns across like the various parties in Kona? Like what do they want to see? What buy-in do they have? What have been some of their concerns? Have they added value as you guys have been thinking about it and talking with them?
Yeah, I think the main problem with the blockchain adoption in the enterprise world, and as I hear a lot of comments from the CIOs and the CTOs of the world, is that they want to get a business plan for the blockchain implementation, like for any other project. If it's a traditional database application implementation, they want to see the concrete return from the entrepreneurs or startups that are coming to them and pitching some of their ideas. Where I see what we want to pitch is that we, in our Coca-Cola bottling world, what we want to, we're naturally working with the consortium of the bottlers, exactly like you mentioned. And what we want to build is a network or an ecosystem that would connect these multiple parties together in a single network and unlock the ability to build distributed applications on the application that will start bringing additional value to different parts of the business. I think the problem with adoption in the blockchain is maybe the intersection of the startup and the kind of the technology evangelists that are investing their time in building more performing blockchains or more secure platforms, and then this gap to the CIOs and the CTOs of the large enterprises, and help them unlock and understand the value of why this is needed for their applications.
Would you say that are you like one of the internal evangelists, like for blockchain, like at Kona or whatever? Like if you left tomorrow, would there not be as many cheerleaders for blockchain? Like, are you one of the guys that support it internally?
I think I was one of you guys who started the blockchain journey at Kona, and I really hope that by the time we're right now in 2020, I was able to encourage a lot of folks in the IT world as well as in the business world to embrace and move and pitch the blockchain technology internally. So hopefully that it's not just me pushing it today, but really now it's going to be maybe not a lot of people, but handful of people who is really believing in the technology and what we can deliver with it.
Got it. So I think this is a good time to pivot. You know, what I kind of want to talk about next is, you know, so what's clear to me is like you guys have a unique opportunity where you have a built-in consortium. I think, which is like not your consortium will live with or without the blockchain, right? It's
Exactly.
like your consort. I swear, like from the first time I heard you talk to me, I was like, I've never heard this before. Like you guys have a very unique consortium. You guys are motivated to make this consortium happy, right? So there's like this other factor where you won't. You would have to be the most insane blockchain use case that all of your consortium hated, where you would still try to impose it on them, right? Like you're gonna want to bring them a blockchain solution that they love. And so it's like you guys start there. Okay, now we're gonna think about blockchain. They have it. You guys have an internal evangelist. Clearly, you're one of those people. So you guys set off on this journey. And I know we talked a little bit about like the lessons learned, but like, you know, did you guys say we're going to do a lot of the heavy lifting internally? Are we going to outsource all of this somewhere in the middle between like partners and what we're doing? You know, how are you guys kind of thinking about, and obviously you have a decent amount of time here and experience, right? So you've seen enough and now you're probably looking around the corner, right? Like we've done all of these examples. We feel like we have our hands wrapped around it. And now we're going to look into the future. So when you look into the future,
right,
what were some of the lessons and how do you think about it going forward?
So I think Kona, again, is in a very unique position to understand the problems of the Coca-Cola bottling business, the distribution side of it, and the need to improve and maybe change the business a little bit to adapt to the modern requirements. And also today we're in the unique times with the pandemic and the COVID-19 situation, where we see that there is a need of from a lot of retailers and customers of ours to have more visibility and transparency into the supply chain of their key suppliers, or visibility in the demand planning cycles of their suppliers, so they don't rely only on the orders that they have to these suppliers, but rather see how they plan the inventory, see this inventory, and from the supplier perspective, also we're a unique situation, to predict the demand from retailers. And I think the blockchain could be this layer where can connect these two together, the key suppliers and the key customers, retailers, and provide more transparency and visibility, enhanced visibility to supply chains to improve the planning cycles and the sales cycles of both parties. So I think the goal forward for us is to definitely grow our network internally and unlock the performance and performance optimization, unlock these values for the bottlers internally, but also look into how do we partner with our key customers and key suppliers of ours? How do we partner with organizations like GS1 US from the standards perspective, that we can develop our solution by the standards using some worldwide framework, so we can talk through the blockchain to our key suppliers in future. And I think this is the main focus of ours right now, is to learn how to achieve this.
Got it. All right. So now sometimes I feel like the blockchain space, like sometimes we just talk about adoption, right? But like you guys have actually you guys have walked the walk, right? So can you take me through, a few of the use cases you guys have deployed, maybe some that you were like, man, that wasn't a good idea, right? Or like, this one excites me more than anything. Like, Patrick, this use case, no one has seen it yet. Like, I love it. Like, what excites you guys about use cases, right? And it could be, obviously, you guys have to deal with, one of the things that excites me about like even beverage companies, it's like you guys deal with cross-border payments, you guys deal with suppliers, you guys deal with labs, for audits of quality control. You guys deal with, logistics, supply chain, not Coke per se. Do you guys sell any alcoholic beverages?
Some of our bottlers do sell half alcoholic beverages, half Coca-Cola beverages. These are not the Kona bottlers. However, once these bottlers become a part of the network from the Coca-Cola distribution perspective, they can also start using the same network to communicate with their trading partners on the beer, wine, and liquor side.
100%. But I was laughing with another partner the other day. I was like, man, drinks are one of the best use cases. I was like, even when somebody goes to the bar to buy your product, then they still need an identification, right? I was like,
yes.
I don't get that. I don't get that with toilet paper. It's not the same use case, right? So anyways, thanks for asking that. But how are you, like, can you just walk me through like your guys' history of specific applications? Like, can you tell me what really excites you guys? Like, cut through all the noise. If you're like excited about 1, 2, 3 things, like what are they and why does it excite you?
So I think what really excites me is to see the impact and how we can implement the blockchain and make an impact to the business and see the change of how the inefficient transaction that was handled through some of the old school communication methods through emails, forms, and phone can become a blockchain transaction that's going to be shared across multiple trading partners, multiple participants, and become a real-time reconciliation event that could help reduce the reconciliation efforts, reconciliation time between two bottlers, and to see an impact down the line financially is how can you increase the cash flow, how you can solve some of the cash flow issues for our trading partners just because we're leveraging the data sharing capabilities of the blockchain and the smart contract capabilities on applying the business rules on the chain to reconcile the transactions, financial transactions. So I think this becoming more live or real-time system rather than an archaic system with the 2 months of the SLA for reconciliations. And then as you have this data and as you have these real-time reconciliations, you can now take it further for your business process automation that would make an impact to your invoicing and payments. And we're not talking about doing payments with a cryptocurrency, but I don't see this not being possible in the next 5 to 10 years, where we see more adoption in the blockchain and just companies, trading partners who trust each other through the blockchain. Now they can leverage some of the tokenization and payments through the blockchain as well.
And I know we have a few minutes here, by the way, and I feel like this conversation, we could probably talk for the next hour and have fun. And for everybody listening, for the students listening, for the general public listening, like, I think this conversation is important because for me, I see two sides. It's like on one half, we have these finance applications of blockchain. We kind of know those work, right? Like we have the Bitcoins or whatever. And then we have the other half of the promise, right? Which is, are there applications that will utilize decentralized databases or signature process, things of what we call trust, or either easier ways to validate? I think companies like Kona, right, or what Coca-Cola is doing and other partners, they're in a very unique position, right? Like the technology that these kind of companies deploy, right, gets used by many people, right? So if we want to prove blockchain, we have to understand what motivates companies like Kona, right? Like, what are the roadblocks they're seeing? Like, how can we close these gaps, right? Like, what does industry want? What do the partners want? What do the banks want, right? And we can pretend that we don't need to solve these problems, but only one way to get to the finish line, right, is to get to the finish line. So real quick, and I know we only have a few more minutes here, and we're running a little longer. I apologize. But to distill down what you just were kind of going over, And I know you're very technical. I like technical guys. Like, but just give it in layman's terms. Like, what is the killer app? Like, what is the killer app that you see? Like, that my grandma could understand. Like, what is this use case that you see that excites you the most for blockchain internally?
So I think as an end goal, or the grandma test for the blockchain applications would be if my grandma could use her cell phone and buy some Coke of the vending machine using Bitcoin, a cryptocurrency, and then as she scans the can, she could trace this can all the way to maybe a batch of raw product that was bought and the location where it was bought, and trace it all the way through the Coke supply chain, how it got into her hands. I think this would be kind of an ideal use case, or very, very great grandma test of the blockchain technology without her knowing what it is, but getting to know all about the product and the product traceability and visibility. I think that would be kind of the killer app for the blockchain for supply chain use case. However, we need to get there, and it's a step-by-step journey that we're in.
All right, so let's talk quickly. We're going to do rapid fire now.
Yep.
So let's talk about that. Like, I assume that your email box is relatively full, that like enough blockchain companies are reaching out to you, trying to do business with you, right? So if for the platforms listening, for the integrators listening, for the multiple parties that have interest, what are you looking for? Like what would help you? Clearly it seems like you're motivated to deploy blockchain, right? But so like, what are the things that you're looking for where you're like, you see it and you're like, nah, I'm too busy. Like, this is like too many hurdles. And like in your perfect world, like what would you see from a lot of these guys?
I think what we see from a lot of these guys is partnering together, doing combined development and experimenting. We have a lot of business problems that we can bring onto the table, and we want to see universities and partners helping them understand these problems that we have, and helping to brainstorm and see how the innovative technology can be applied to solve these issues. And especially to the folks in the colleges and the universities, we can look in towards you to get your brain and innovative ideas to see how we can do how we can change our business, right? How can we improve and adopt it to the modern requirements?
So I think this is my last question before we sign off. And again, it's been very nice to talk with you. And I know we could do this probably for another hour. So I know there's, again, 4,000 students listening to this right now.
Yep.
They are stuck at home. Their schools aren't open. All of their conferences just got canceled. If they have some great idea, they're like, man, I'm listening to Andrei talk. I know an application that I have that like Coke would love, or CONA. What are their outlets? Like, what do you guys do to kind of stimulate that community? How do you kind of see that partnership between, academia or startups, et cetera?
Yeah, so we see the partnerships on all of the levels. You could start with universities, research work. We work a lot with the interns, so we invite them to come and join us for summer and embrace what we do, understand the internal problems and internal processes, and provide their inputs there. And then from the startups perspective, we're also looking into, explaining you what we have, and kind of, hearing from you what the solutions could be, and what are the really smart and innovative solutions we can develop using the innovative technologies.
You probably get a lot of emails from like reconciliation or like supply chain blockchain startups. Like, what emails do you like? What inspires you to open an email, or like what perks your brain like with an idea? Like, what are the things you really want to see solved?
I think what we see is a lot of fee-based solutions that probably trying to solve the same issue, the problem that they all have. They're very cookie-cutter solutions, and in order to adopt it, I think a lot of effort will be required from the enterprise perspective. What we see is how can we partner with the startups and the universities, maybe develop something that would become at the end an open source and available to everybody, so everybody can enhance and as well as use in their enterprise applications. I think this would be a successful project is if someone would like to partner with us, understand the problems, have a solution, but rather than having a fee-based approach to this, we come together and we contribute both to the project and make it available to others to use and enhance as an open source project, for example.
For all of the students listening, and I would just say to general people, like, listen to Andrei, right? Like, this guy is literally sitting in the middle of like mass deployment and like blockchain, right? Like, if you build a cool startup, like one day you're gonna be sitting in a room with Andrei, right? He's like, what is your product, right? Like, listen to what he's saying, right? Like, dissect these words, you know what I mean? And I know there's a lot more there. But I will let you kind of wrap it up, Andrei. We'll end it here in a second. But you know, for the many universities on this call right now, and like many aspiring programmers, data scientists, CS majors, artificial intelligence, whatever, who are thinking, I have to make my career choice. Am I going to go work at like Apple, Google, whatever? But like, they really like blockchain. That's why they're watching this presentation. You know, if you could go back in time, like if you were a student today, like, what would be your advice to them? Like, how would you think about blockchain and like, how would you approach it?
I would say if you're participating in the Reimagine 2020, then you probably believe in the blockchain technology. So I would say learn as much as you can from this conference, try to meet with people, talk to them, what they do, try to get inspired by what they do and inspire them as well. And I think at the end, if you come out of this with some great ideas and can inspire others, I think we can be living in a better world.
Dude, Andrei is coming with the inspiration. I knew I liked this guy. But hey, for everybody watching, really appreciate your time. I'm telling you, I was actually very excited for this interview, and hopefully everybody learned something from it. Again, I'll reiterate, I would be very surprised if the vision of blockchain was executed without multiple parties involved, right? And whether it's Coca-Cola, CONA, banks, universities, whatever, we need to understand what those touch points are, right? Like what the integration points are, right? If we keep coming to everyone with the same thing, if we're not seeing adoption, if we're not executing, it really doesn't make sense, right? So these type of conversations we want to have to really open it, right? And to make sure that anybody looking at blockchain is hearing, I have an idea, but how does that interact with a corporate partner, right? Like, what do they want to see, right? Like, how do I bring it to them with as low of friction as possible? So again, Andrei, I really appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and I have another interview here in 5 minutes. I'm going to take like 30 seconds to grab some water in between. Any last words, and I'll let you close it out.
I would like to thank you guys for inviting Kona and myself into this conference, and I'm looking forward to participating in this. And good luck with all your effort. Really appreciate it.
You're tuned in to Reimagine 2020. Stay tuned to learn more about the state-of-the-art in blockchain education and technological development all around the world. Reimagine 2020.